Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. This is the second episode of my brand new chat show series called Life. Every fortnight will be a different episode, a different friend, and a different perspective on life. Now today I'm very pleased to invite a very dear friend of mine called John Church to the virtual couch. I met him over a decade ago when I was working in London, and he's been a very, very dear friend ever since, and has given me wonderful advice over the years, and I'm super, super honored to sit here and share his wonderful words of wisdom with you today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I had quite a challenge. I thought I had my work cut out with Sue. Our conversation went for 2.5 hours. Me and this guy smashed the ball out of the park with a 6-hour and 45-minute conversation. I don't know, I think I might have to do a part 2 for everyone later in the series or something. So today we are going to be discussing how to deal with challenging people, social media, what is success, and love. And in keeping with the theme of love, I'll see you on the other side, and I'll be giving you a cover of Etta James, I'd Rather Go Blind. So I'll see you later. In the meantime, enjoy the wonderful words of wisdom from my beautiful friend, John Church.
I've tried to tell my daughters that life isn't the way that it seems. The way that they're being told it isn't necessarily the way it is. And I always try to tell them, don't lose faith. Don't lose faith in yourself, first of all. Never lose faith in yourself. If other people are telling you you're no good, you just say bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know? What do you know? How many people that don't know you have had an opinion about you that is so wrong, they haven't bothered trying to find out about you, they haven't bothered trying to understand where you're coming from, and they just have this opinion of you, and you're supposed to kind of go along with that.
I have to say that's my biggest issue in life, is being people's assumptions.
Well, then that's when you have to use this good old traditional English word, which probably goes back from the days of Shakespeare, as I would imagine, and the word is bollocks. And what you have to do is that when they come out with these things, you just have to say to these people, bollocks. I am not interested in your uneducated, you haven't even bothered to, it's unreasonable because you haven't. One of the things you really have to remember in life is never argue with someone that has come to a conclusion by unreasonable means. Mm-hmm. Because if you're trying to be reasonable with unreasonable people, you will never win, because they haven't used reason to get to that point. So, forget it, just forget it. And you have to learn to kind of cut people off and go, right, no, I'm not going to do that. You're not going to involve me in your nonsense. How about this? Bollocks, off you go.
And I think that's an important skill to learn, because when you are sensitive and you are an empathetic person, you don't want to hurt other people's feelings. So even though they've just made a massive misassumption about you and they've hurt your feelings because they've just judged you based on their own basic boundaries that they have, even though they've really hurt you, you can't stand up for yourself because you don't want to hurt their feelings at that time. And I think that's something that I'm trying to work on, is to be a bit more firm in situations like that, and to be clear straight off the bat and be like, I'm sorry, you've just massively misjudged me. You've not even took the time to get to know me. This conversation is over. I'm walking away now. Stop giving people so much benefit of the doubt when they don't deserve it.
It is a problem. It is a problem when, yes, you are kind of, you are empathic, and you do have narcissistic people, trying their best to claim that they're the victim. How many times I heard that that they were the victim, but they were the one that cheated. They were the one that did something, and then somehow they're the victim. It's like, well, how did you work that one out? You know, and that's when the reasonable person sits there going over and over and over and over. Well, you know, but you just have to try to remember. Look, were you reasonable? You say to yourself, were you being reasonable? Yes, I was. Were they being reasonable? No, they weren't. You know, who did the dirty deed? It was them. It wasn't you. So therefore, you know.
Yeah, and that
don't
comes from the curiosity of like yourself again. And I think, you know, it's such an important topic to hone in on, to make sure that we're having this self-reflection and understanding what our motives are. And when you're in a situation like that, it's not always so easy to determine you know, what the black and white of it is, because life is gray, you know, everything is very complex. So you do tend to get a bit clouded when you're in a situation with a more dominant person. Maybe they are narcissistic or some narcissistic tendencies or what. You're usually the one that will step down and say, you know, if they're playing the victim, even though they won, straight away you'll just give it to them. Oh, I'm so sorry, you know. But you have to make sure in the moment, perhaps you're not aware of yourself enough to see it at that point. But as long as each time that happens, you go away and you evaluate. And then the more you do that, the more you'll be able to do it in the moment, because you'll know yourself well enough to be able to have your back at the time when you need it. So it won't happen straight away, and it does take time, and it takes building up your confidence, and it takes building up self-awareness, and it takes being able to observe the nuances of the situation. And it takes training. You can't do that straight away. And I think that's what perhaps is a bit overwhelming. So then people just continue along that cycle, because it takes time. It does take time, but you have to stick with it. You owe it to yourself to stick with it, so that 10 more occasions down the line, you will be able to identify when someone is manipulating you or bullying you. In that moment, you won't have to go away and think about it for a couple. And then that's when oh, I wish I'd have said that shit comes in. And then you wind yourself up for days because you have the perfect response, but it's 3 days late.
This is why when curiosity comes into life, when every time you have that experience, when you analyze it, you're curious about why it went the way it went. Why did it go that way? Why did I say what I said? Why did they say what they said? And a lot of the time, we spend too much time in considering why other people said what they said. We don't know why they said it. They've got their own agendas, you know. So what we need to work on and what we need to think about,
the other person instead of yourself. Like, how crazy
instead of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we do. How many times do you sit there and you're saying, why did they say what they said to me? Instead of thinking to yourself, what was my response, and why did I have? Why did I
feel like that?
Yeah.
Why do I give a shit about that person's opinion anyway?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's the sort of thing that you know, people get into trouble because they're too busy, you know, thinking that, well, you know, they said that to me, and I don't know why they said it to me, and listen, they had their own agenda, you know. It's as simple as that, you know. And you
again, because of social media, there's so much of it, all of this trolling, all of this bullying, and it's a few stupid little words for someone. You don't understand the impact that can have on you. Just ruined someone's life.
Well,
they're a teenager. Take those words seriously.
I've got a one of the things that annoys me about that whole kind of thing is that, and it's probably a generational thing, and it's also something that was lost along the way. And what was lost along the way was that when I grew up, we used to say, sticks and stones will break my bones and names will never hurt me, right? That's what we were taught. We were taught that. So if someone called you names, you know, we're back to the good old, and we're back to the good old English word of just saying bollocks. You know, I don't care. I don't care. You know, social, when you consider the ridiculousness of social media, when you consider the ridiculousness of Facebook, right?
Mm.
So Facebook, so you imagine if we did all the things that we do on Facebook, but without Facebook, and we did them in reality. So what would happen is that I would cook my dinner, and I would walk down my street, and I would say, "Here, look what I'm having for my dinner tonight." And then some bloke would go, "Oh, I like that," and you'd go, "Cheers." And then I'd walk next door, and I'd say, "Yeah, look what I'm having," and they'd go, "Fuck off, you know, it's rubbish." And I'd be like, "Oh my God, he said my dinner's
Put it in the
rubbish."
bin. I'm not
You know?
eating that now.
Yeah. And so then I'll come back home, and then I'm like, "Oh my God, you know, her at number 24 said my dinner was rubbish. You know, what am I going to do?"
My life is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what goes on social media. And I don't understand why people take any notice.
Hmm.
I was getting phone calls from friends kind of telling me, you know, their troubles and woes. And then I'd look on Facebook, and they'd be there with a photograph, and I'd be like, "Well, look, who are you trying to kid? I've just had you on the phone, and you're telling me how like rubbish your life is." And I'm looking on Facebook, and I'm thinking, well, what is this nonsense? Why have they got caught up in this crap about, you know, trying to, instead of actually working on themselves and working on the situation? Well, what I'll do is I'll throw it out there, and I'll just mask the way that, you know, what's the point in that? What
And
is
you're
the point in that?
looking for validation from other people rather than yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So suddenly
Yeah.
your own thoughts and opinions, motivations don't even matter. Like, you don't even take the time to think about them. All you care about is what other people are saying about your thing.
Yeah.
And there's a huge issue now with depression, isn't there, with the youngsters? And I think that's why, you know, it seems, and, you know, this is another motivation for me to do this series. Like, we were talking a lot when I was talking with Sue about there's no standard model for success. I really want to get that out there, is, you know, there's so many different versions of success. There's so many different kinds of people in this world. There's so many things you can be. But then, you know, we look at these Facebook lives and everyone's comparing themselves to that all the time. And it's not even real. Nobody's going, I had an argument with my family, and then put a picture of the miserable family on Facebook. You know, it's always the best times that you see, isn't it? So it's, it's misrepresentative of real life, and these teenagers are looking up to that, and they know that they're nowhere near that because it's not real, it's not true, it doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, that's exactly why I kind of came off it. I came off it because I thought, you know, like, why am I not seeing a photograph of somebody putting their bins out? You know, governments are happy. Governments are happy while 20 million people are looking at what she's wearing. They can get away with murder. Literally murder. They can siphon the money off. They can pay their friends. They can do whatever they want to do. Well, nobody cares. Nobody cares because we're being told
they don't know
that the most interesting thing to happen that day, you know, was that somebody had, you know, a cheese and tomato quiche for their dinner.
Exactly.
I think the overriding thing for me is for people just to not lose faith in humanity. You know, there are good people out there. I've always got faith. I've always got faith in people.
I have faith in people. I just worry that there's not enough weight behind those people. There's not enough, they're not taken seriously enough in the way the world is right now. So, like, people that are out there doing the humanitarian work, being altruistic, they're kind of judged as being weaker these days. And that's what scares me, is that if you want to be a winner and you want to be the best, you've got to be cutthroat. You've got to get your way to the top, and you make it on your own. There's like these self-made men. Like, nobody's self-made. You need opportunities, you need training, you need support. No man is self-made, you know. And I think that's what worries me. Like, we seem to be like the weaker force.
Yes, but this is only because we're all getting brainwashed into believing that we all need to be climbing that hill, you know.
Hill to success, whatever that is.
More people need to, you know, sit outside the pub with a pint watching all these idiots fighting over, you know. More people need to just understand that I mean, I worked with a guy. The last kind of big sort of place I worked at, I won't mention it, but I worked there, and I worked with a guy who said, he said I had a dinner party last night, and I said, oh yeah, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, we spoke about what is success, and I said, oh right, yeah. You know, I mean, this guy had worked in the same place for 30 years, right? For 30 years. So the background of it was that this guy had worked there for 30 years, and he said to me, so we had a sort of a round table of what was successful. He said, it came to me, he said, and I said, well, I'll give you what's successful. I've got 3 properties that I rent out. Yeah, sort of buy-to-let properties that I rent out, so I get rental income from those 3. I've got my own house, plus I've got a house in Spain. He said, my son and daughter have both got high-paying jobs, and I think I'm successful. And then the next person around the table was his wife, and his wife turned around and said, completely out of the blue to him, well, I don't think that's successful. Success is kind of knowing the people that you love, being with the people that you love, giving your time up for the people you love. And he said, I sat there with my mouth open, gobsmacked, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that my wife of 45 years, you know, didn't agree that I was successful. He said, I think it's a bloody cheek.
Maybe
and I
you
said,
should
well, I'm
talk
sorry,
to her
mate.
a bit more often, huh?
Exactly. I said, well, I'm with your wife, mate, to be honest with you. I said, I'm with your wife. I said, like, success. I said, is it really success? You know, I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure that that's success, because I'll tell you why I don't think it's success. Because what if you go to a country that is poorer than ours? What if you go to somewhere? What if you go to the Sudan? You go to Eritrea, to Ethiopia? What do you say to those people then? Do you say to those people, you will never own 5 properties, so don't even try, you are unsuccessful, so therefore, I said, surely success is relative. Surely success is relative. If someone in countries like that walk 5 miles to get fresh water, and then they come back and they've actually got fresh water that day, that's success. That they've actually, you know, they've got something, you know. And I said, so what you're talking about is just material things. All you've managed to do is garner more material possessions than
any
me.
idiot can do, actually.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's not successful, because in his own mind he is. Everything's relative.
I think
in his own mind he is.
It's definitely subjective, but I think it needs to be appreciated that it's subjective. So you can't judge people because they're living a different life from you. You can't think that you're better than that person because you have a house in Spain and that person doesn't. But
well, what is success? I don't know. For me, success is getting through the day, having made somebody laugh, and not upsetting anybody, doing my bit for, you know, the environment, doing my bit for, you know, all the rest of the causes that come along, you know, not upsetting people, and doing what I want to do, living my life the way I want to live it. If I don't want to do something, it's successful if I'm able to not do it. If I can just say, well, I don't need to do that. I know it's all on social media that I need to do it, but you know what? I'm not doing it because I think it's a load of nonsense. You know, and just having the courage to just to tell people, you know, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the fact that you think it's important, but I don't think it's important, so I'm not doing it. There you go. For me, you know, if I go on a dating site and I've got some, you know, 50-year-old divorcee who's just robbed all her old man of all his money in the house, and then they kind of go to me, well, you know, what have you got? And I go, well, I've got a dog and I've got 2 daughters and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh my God, you know, like, you know, you're so unsuccessful, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, am I really though? Because, you know, I've actually had a good life. I've traveled around the world. I've met some, you know, fantastic people. I've had some fantastic nights. I mean, I've had nights that just, I've had nights that have turned into to weeks. You know, I've had some fantastic. I've had some fantastic, absolutely like good times.
You have some knowledge to impart because of that. You have experiences, you have lessons learned, you have a character and a personality because of that.
I mean, so
but that's not written on your CV, right?
No, and that's the problem. Yeah, and that's the problem, that like, you know, when I'm talking to this guy and he's I mean, I'm there and I'm like, mate, you know, I've seen more personality in a bowl of cornflakes, you know, than but you know, but you've got all this stuff. Yeah, you might have all this stuff, mate, but you know, let me tell you about when I played Jenga with ladyboys in Bali. You know, let me tell you about when I was getting drunk in Boston, you know, with an Irish girl. Let me tell you about, you know, all these different things that I've done. You know, now they may not mean nothing to you, and that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. I really haven't. I'm not trying to make out that I'm this and I'm that. You've lived your life, I've lived mine, but I'm really happy that I haven't lived your life.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm really happy that I'm able to lay there and laugh. I lay in bed and I laugh at some of the things I've done. It all comes back to what you learn as a kid. You know, a lot of this is about what you learn as a kid, what you're taught as a kid, and if you're taught certain things as a kid, that's what you kind of you end up doing. You know, we were before all of this, we were talking about love, for instance, and love. You know, when you're a kid, you're kind of taught love that is, you know, by your parents, that you understand that they love you. Supposedly they should do, but not all the times they do. But you understand that they love you, and that they do everything for you. And what can happen is that you then grow up into an adult, and you then have this idea of love, and this idea of love, you know, how many times have you you know, if it's the first time or if it's the second, third, fourth time, what is it that you know about it? You know from your past, you know from when you're a kid, that love is about giving. So sometimes you can expect the other person to just give you everything, because that's what you understand love to be. Because like your mother and father kind of, you know, when you were hungry, they fed you. When you were, you know, you were cold, they clothed you. When you needed somewhere to sleep, they gave you a bed. So you can get this idea that that's what love is. And sometimes that's why expectations of love and what you expect from somebody isn't the real thing, isn't what you should be thinking, but it's just about what you've been taught, right? You know,
so I guess you're not making a distinction at that point between the variations of love. You know, love is such an overarching word, isn't it? It's such a limiting word. Really.
Yes, you find, of course, that it's not like that, because that kind of love is different to that kind of love. you know, and that's the trouble with the word love.
Yeah.
That we seem to think that it's,
Thrown
well, it
around
means one,
yeah.
well, it means one thing, and it doesn't. It's light and dark. You know, I mean, how many people have murdered, you know, because they were in love. You know,
yeah.
they were, you know,
a
they
really
suddenly
powerful
became
force, isn't it? That's
yeah, and it goes from sweetness and light to, you know, to darkness and this
yeah.
It's just a real thing
Become
that's
really toxic. You love someone so much, so you get jealous, you get suspicious, you get paranoid, and then they say a fine line between love and hate, isn't it? And it is.
The idea of love fundamentally is kind of understanding that it's good enough to give and not necessarily to receive. That you're willing to give something to someone. You're willing to give your time. You're willing to give your energy to this person. And, you know, if we're talking about in a kind of a romantic context, that you're willing to give that to them, to this person, that you don't give to anybody else. You're able to stand in front of this person and be the real you. You're able to not be afraid of telling this person what you really believe in. You can stand there naked in front of this person and not worry that this little bit of bump, this little bit here doesn't quite match up with that one and that. You're able to do that. That's love, because you are you're capable of being not worried at all. You don't worry at all that there's going to be any kind of comeback and any kind of negativity coming your way, that they will accept you. You can stand there completely stark bollock naked in front of them. You can tell them all about your depression, and they will simply sit there and accept it because it's you. And you don't do that with anybody else.
You don't even do that with yourself. We don't even love ourselves enough to accept every lump and bump and imperfection.
Well, and this kind of is a problem. This is a problem that you know, you're gonna have trouble loving somebody else if you don't love yourself. You know, if you don't accept yourself for who you are, you know, then you're gonna have trouble. You're gonna have problems. You know, I grew up in an era of I mean, I'm an absolute romantic for like love song. I love love. I absolutely love love. I love being in love. The whole idea that I can wake up and smile because, you know, I'm thinking about somebody else. I'm thinking about, you know, what we're going to do today, that I'm going to spend time, you know.
You're just doing something and then this cheesy grin just comes across your face. That spontaneous, bubbly feeling, that smile you get when you're sat at your computer, you know, it's a trip, man.
Yeah.
I haven't had that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, who was it? Roxy Music saying love is a drug. Yeah, and it's absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, if anyone said to me, you know, what is your drug of choice? It would be love. It would.
I love that about you, because you know, to just meet you on the street, you know, you're this big tall guy with this thick East London accent, and you know, you seem, you know, quite tough, I guess, but you're a sensitive couple. I love that. I really like that.
It's just unfortunate.
No,
it's unfortunate. No. What's unfortunate is that people take you at face value.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe right.
They should spend Friday afternoons in the pub with you. They learn a lot.
Well, I would probably be the first to admit that that you know, I may have not shown my real self to people. when we're talking about love,
Yeah.
the thing about for me, the importance of teaching kids love, not just showing them as a parent that you love them, but the fact that you then get a pet, that they then have to then not only accept love, but they have to give love. They then learn how to give love to a pet, to a pet.
And sacrifice yourself for it. Like,
yeah, and the
you have
fact
to
that
get out of bed, you have to take it on that
yeah,
walk, you have to feed it.
yeah, absolutely. and that is, you know, that's love. That's what you do when you're, you know, with someone.
Yeah.
You know, you can lay in bed on your own for as long as you like, but if you're with someone and they want to get up and want to go and do things, then, well, then, you know, so this is what you have to learn. And for me, a pet as a, you know, as a child is a very good learning thing, because not only do they learn how to love, but then if that pet dies, they learn bereavement. They learn what happens to that love when that thing is not there anymore. Does it survive? Does it carry on? Do they continue to, you know, can they continue to love? Is it right or wrong that they continue to love? All of these things they learn, you know, and they can learn all that from having a pet, and, you know, and a pet that kind of, you know, yes, if it dies, then you kind of go, right, well, you know, that's all part of life. That's all part of what happens. You know,
so
when
it doesn't hit hard when it's your grandparents or someone.
Yes, exactly, because
family,
because it's you're understanding. You're teaching them, you know, that the love, you know, that thing doesn't go when they go. You know, that the love for them doesn't go. That person doesn't go. You know, I've spoken about that kind of thing with my kids quite often, because as a child I was quite afraid of death. You know, the whole thing of death, it was like, oh my God, like, you know, my God, if my, you know, what am I going to do? And so I was very aware of that. So, you know, when my two came along, we go to the cemetery, which is just up the road here, where my mother and father are. And we kind of go and stand by my father's grave, and I tell them stories about.
Do they know your mum and dad, your kids?
No, they knew. Well, Bella, my eldest, knew my mum and dad. Little and she only was around when my mum was ill, but my mum was, she had kind of dementia for about 7 years. And so she didn't even know who I was. So I never actually took her to see her. It was just, you know, she just didn't know kind of anything really by the end. But the whole idea that we go there and we stand there and we talk about them, and I tell them stories about them, and about how, you know, when somebody dies, if you keep them alive by doing the things that they would do. So, you know, I try to act the way my father would have acted.
Yeah.
And then I try to teach that to them. And I say, he's still alive through me into you. The way that you live now is because the way I've taught you, and I've only taught you that way because of him. And he is only that way because of his parents, because of his mother. His father was away, but his mother was at home. So I said, you know, that's the line that you take through life. That's how, you know, we go through generations, that we pay attention to what previous generations did, and when we move through and we live our lives, living it in a certain way, and hopefully living up to the kind of way that previous generations lived. You know,
completely agree. Like I do the same, like with my granddad. I catch myself thinking about him all the time, you know, like I will always clear my glasses if I go out to a restaurant, I will take my empty plates too, because my granddad is always like, they have a job to do, you know, or help. Even like if a bus is coming and you're driving, he would always pull over to let the bus pass and things like that, you know. And I, you know, it just comes out naturally, and then you're like, oh, that's my granddad, right? That's
and that's how that
nice
generation continues to live, and that's how you keep those people close. You keep them close to you, and that's the love you have for them.
I think that's the beautiful thing about love, isn't it? And I think that's what makes love so unique from anything else in the universe, that the force of love is so strong, it transcends the physical world. Like, we still love people that are not even here anymore. You know, how powerful is that force of love, that it loves things that don't even exist anymore. It's a crazy concept. You know, I love that about love. I love, you know, I for me personally, I think it's the strongest force in the universe. Love is a force like gravity, like electromagnetism, like, you know, any of the strong, the weak forces, you know. I think love is the fifth force of the universe, you know. It's what ties us together. It's what binds the living world. It's what allows us to evolve and to grow.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of it's like it's not really worth living if you haven't got it in your life. When I was a kid, I used to listen to songs and I would sit there crying, because the actual, I listened to, you know, one that comes to mind, for instance, is probably Carole King singing "It's Too Late," right?
Aww.
It's too late, baby, right? It's sit there and I would think, oh my God, you're too late. There's nothing you can do about it, because you didn't do it in the time you should have done. And I think that something like that was what is how I grew up, and how when I then, you know, went into kind of romantic relationships, I never wanted to sit there and say, you know, oh my God, I'm too late. I should have done something. You know, so a lot of the kind of ideas of love that I had, I got through music. You know, listening to music, listening to, you know, kind of singer-songwriters, listening to, you know, Carole King, Simon and Garfunkel, Joni Mitchell. My God, I mean, Joni Mitchell, I just oh man, you know, like you're there and you're just like, you know, like, I'm feeling you, darling. I'm feeling it. That's empathy. That's that where I'm absolutely with you in that moment where you are writing that and you are feeling it, and I'm there. Where I've been kind of broken-hearted on more than one occasion, I read into it. And if you read into, you know, what a broken heart is, it triggers the same kind of brain signals as if you're in pain, which is why you feel pain. You literally feel pain.
And you literally feel it where your heart.
Yeah.
What is that about?
You literally feel pain, because the brain signals are exactly the same as to if you cut your finger, and it says you've got pain in your finger, and they've done studies. There's all kinds of studies.
Physically cut your heart. That's your brain reacts as if your heart has been physically cut.
Yeah.
Wow.
It tells you that you are in pain, and I can remember, you know, I can remember laying there, you know, unfortunately on more than one occasion, just kind of like, you know, like
listening to Joni Mitchell.
Woe is me. Let's put some Joni on. Put the Joni on, quick.
It doesn't hurt enough. I need Joni. Go all the way.
Yeah. If I've got a pet hate, my pet hate is when people say, you know, that they're on a journey. I'm on a journey, they say. You know, My good God, I hate that, because for me, life is not a journey, right? Because journeys are all about the destination, aren't they? You know, if I'm like, my journey to, you know,
the journey
to
is the
Ibiza,
destination.
you know,
Are you happy with that?
Well, see, I like to consider life in terms of music, because if it was in terms of a journey,
Do you
a
have like
journey
different
into
albums for different phases of your life or something?
absolutely, but
Right.
the whole point of music, is to enjoy every single note. It's not about
Not about the
enjoying the
end.
final note.
Yeah.
No, you dance and you sing
The whole
throughout
way
that whole
through.
song, from that
Darn, you're gonna
first
have me
chord.
crying. That's beautiful.
You know, that's what life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be from that
So when
opening
they say
note.
music is life, music is love, it literally is.
Absolutely, it should be. That's the way you should consider it. Because with a journey, what is a journey? So I sit and I wait. I wait for the tube to get me to the train station. Then I wait at the train station. Then I wait for the train. Then I sit on the
Always
train and I
waiting for
wait.
something.
Yes, you're always waiting for the next thing. Then
The
I
next thing
wait on the
is gonna
plane.
make you happy. You're waiting for that
Yeah.
moment that's gonna make you happy.
Yeah.
Always.
And you are not listening like to that moment. Whereas with a song, with music, it's from the very beginning to the very end. You are, you know, how many other things can make your hair stand on the back of your neck? How many other things can make you feel alive? For me, it's either music or it's love, because the only other way other than music that's going to make me feel like that is if I'm in love.
Something told me it was over. When I saw you and her talking now, something deep down in my soul said, cry, girl. When I saw you and that girl walking now, see, love you so much, I don't wanna watch you leave me, baby. Most of all, just don't wanna be free. I was just sitting here thinking on your kiss and your warm embrace, yeah. When the reflection in the glass that I held to my lips now, baby, revealed the tears that was on my face, yeah. See, love you so much, I don't wanna watch you leave me, baby. Most of all, I just don't wanna be free. Baby, 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 baby. Love you all.
Lit up in a